We don't have those. So where's the love? Where's the love? Where's the love? Where's the love? Where's the love tonight? But there's no love, man. There's no love and the kids are uptight. So throw a party till the cops come in and bust it up. Let's go, North Americans. Oh, you were planning it. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry. I did it once and my parents got a pity upset. Freaked out in North America. But then I said the more I do it, the better it gets. That's why North America. We are North American scum. We're from North America.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, big night last night for Democrats across the country, particularly in Virginia. On the program, Dave Weigel, national correspondent for the Washington Post, will be here to give us his thoughts. He was, of course, crisscrossing the country, reporting on political goings-ons. The wave crashes. It crashed on Ed Gillespie last night. There was a 32-seat swing erased. I should say a 32-seat advantage erased in the Virginia House of Delegates. It could flip. There are 4 races that remain extant to be recounted. Meanwhile, the West Coast becomes a wall of blue. Maine votes to expand Medicaid. A night of firsts as African American and trans women win big. Oh, and we have some clips of Fox News. Meanwhile, Donald Trump in South Korea promoting his golf club and nuclear holocaust. Back here, ACA sign-up spike as open enrollment starts and Trump okays or plans to okay things like work requirements for Medicaid. Republicans in the Senate and the House rejiggering their tax cuts as Donald Trump claims they hit him hard. So tough on me. CIA leader Pompeo meets about the Seth Rich conspiracy, while his underlings say they're concerned that he's protecting Donald Trump.
What?
And
Why would
lastly,
you be concerned?
just to put a cherry point on it, what am I looking for? Syria has joined the Paris Accords. That's right, Syria. In between their long running civil war, they've decided to join the Paris Accords. So there it is. Folks, an amazing night last night. And look, I pre-recorded this with Dave Weigel moments ago. I mentioned it in the piece with Dave Weigel, but I want to mention this again. We had some listeners who I still haven't quite figured it out, to be honest with you. But they crowdsourced some polling, and they sent us the information. We tried to get it up and post it just on the site tomorrow, or yesterday, so that it was there before the elections. And frankly, I was a little bit skeptical because it said that Northam was going to win by a 10-point margin, which at the time I was like, well, look, they did the work. Let's put it up. And they were wrong. They were off by almost a full point, where everyone else anywhere was off by anywhere from 5 to 7 to whatever points. I mean, so the data is there. We've got a link to their spreadsheet. If you can, if you know how to use that kind of stuff or read that kind of stuff, then do so. Check it out on the site. But first, let's go to Fox News. That's honestly like the first thing I did was to switch over to Fox. And Sean Hannity they did like a 20-minute waiting for Donald Trump to speak in South Korea. Like all of a sudden, like foreign policy so important. They didn't even in their scroll underneath, didn't even acknowledge there was elections going on. But here is poor Tucker Carlson getting the news.
It is Election Day in the state of Virginia, the most closely watched race of this year. Ralph Northam, physician, VMI graduate, Democrat, at this hour, 58% reporting. He is at 51%. Ed Gillespie, former Republican Party head, he is at 48%. Numerically, fairly close, but Northam in the lead at this hour. Of course, we're going to bring you the results as we get them minute by minute. We've got breaking news here. Okay, we are now reporting that Ralph Northam has won the Virginia governor's race. Ralph Northam, the Democrat, beating Ed Gillespie with 58% in. We are projecting that he is the winner tonight. So we will bring you more detail on that. And I don't know if we can, Kristen Fisher is live at the Ralph Northam headquarters right now. Kristen, are you there? We're going to get to Kristen Fisher in just a second. I don't think we have official statements from either camp. But as we just said, we are now declaring or acknowledging the declaration that Ralph Northam is the winner in this race. And it looks like by about 3 points. Kristen Fisher, I think, is standing by at the Northam headquarters in Virginia tonight. Kristen?
There it is, folks. Poor Tucker Carlson.
Is MS-13 going to be in charge of law enforcement in Virginia now? I mean, it's a serious question.
He was so depressed about it that he didn't even have the energy to do that. Man. Right. I mean, now maybe his dog got hit by a car or something yesterday, and that's why he was so down, but he was super depressed.
Fluffles Eichmann got hit by a car.
Just 3. And then, of course, it ended up being closer to 9 points. But it was difficult for him. But he was so depressed. I wonder if, can
we book a professor to
here's
talk
the thing.
about transgender people or something?
Well,
perk me up.
That may also be why he was upset, because a trans woman won her race, and we'll talk more about this, but she ran, from what I've heard of her speaking and have read, she ran just a very localized race and seemed to be completely on top of the issues and well-spoken, et cetera, but coincidentally, or maybe not so coincidentally, she ran against the guy who launched, in many respects, the whole transgender bathroom pushback legislation stuff. And she defeated him. So maybe that's why Tucker was so upset, There was a bunch of other reasons why he might be upset. Not the least of which is that if you are a Republican partisan right now, you have to be very, very concerned that 2018 is going to be a bloodbath, because you're watching people resign from Congress. There were 2 resignations yesterday. Granted, they were in deeply red states, but these are, and what yesterday is going to do is, to the extent that there were already far more candidates for office across the country than there were in prior off-year elections, there's going to be even more. In fact, and I'm going to try and find this statistic, and maybe I'll say, but Alec McGinnis had tweeted this, and it was incredible. The number of contested seats that were in this race, as opposed to 2013, which is the analogous year. Maybe it would have been 2015 or 2013. I don't know. I will check it out. In Virginia was stunning. And there's a lot of implications to that. We talk about it a little bit with Dave Weigel. But first, I will tell you this. 2 nights ago, maybe it was 2 nights ago, I got my first order. It was actually my second order, I guess, of Cameron Hughes wine. Cameron Hughes it's an interesting approach to wine. With Cameron Hughes, you can find like a fantastic quality wine at everyday reasonable prices, like a $50 bottle of wine for $15. And what Cameron Hughes does is he checks out top wineries, primarily, as far as I can tell, on the West Coast, but I guess some around the world. He blends them and then sells them direct to you under his label for 50% less than you would pay at retail. People know my sister is works in that business, in the wine business, Italian wines. So she's a little bit, little hoity-toity about her wines. Forgive me for saying so, Julie, but I think you know that I feel that way. And she was really impressed. And she also said the dirty little secret is that wineries do this all the time, but they just don't tell you. But that's what Cameron Hughes' business is. So with Cameron Hughes wine, you know you're getting the best deals always. These are luxury wines at affordable prices. Cameron Hughes has been featured in Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Wine Enthusiast. He has serious industry cred, and here's the clincher. He guarantees all his wines. If you're unhappy with any bottle that you buy from him, he will make it right for you. Find out why Cameron Hughes wine is the preferred wine choice by informed and passionate wine lovers. I'll tell you exactly what I got. You know, I buy in the $15 range. But you can buy wines up to $32 here. I'm not that type of person. But, I mean, I have once, maybe. But I bought...
I want to hear that story.
Yeah, I don't even remember it. I'm assuming. I bought the Zinfandel Lodi, or Lodi. Maybe I'm not saying it right. There's 2 different lots. And no, it was lot 559. They're just numbers. I think I bought a Napa Valley Syrah. That was $18. And I may have bought the other Napa Valley. And then there was one Oregon blend. I can't find Red Mountain, maybe that's what it was. I don't know, Washington State, maybe. And anyways, they're all fantastic. Really, they're great wines. I want you to try these. So, Cameron Hughes has given my listeners an incredible deal. You get free shipping on 3 or more bottles of wine and a free sommelier-grade corkscrew. This is a great deal to try these already discounted wines. Free shipping is a huge savings because wine is, as you know, heavy and very expensive to ship. The wine is fantastic. The deal is fantastic. Do not miss out on this limited time offer. Go to chwine.com. Use the code MAJORITY right now. That's chwine.com. Enter the code MAJORITY. And take a picture of the bottle, too. This is what I've learned to do, so that I know which wines I like. That's the way I roll. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Dave Weigel about this night, which is hard to know if it's a harbinger of things to come. But I'll tell you, it was pretty amazing. And there are some a night like this could impact things like the tax bill, frankly. But here's that interview. We'll take a quick break. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It's always a pleasure to welcome back to the program Dave Weigel, Washington correspondent for the Washington Post. Is that Washington correspondent? I never get your title right.
Just national correspondent.
National
the whole country.
The whole country.
The big old country. Yeah.
And you've been traveling around, obviously, quite a bit with the elections. So let's break it down. Virginia was a bit of a surprise, right? I mean, yes, right? It was a huge wave.
Yeah, it was bigger than we thought, and I was among the more bullish people on Ralph Northam's chances. I thought he ran a uninspiring campaign, not towards progressives, but towards like the person who pays scant attention to politics. They had this very what I sometimes mock as like a Cialis ad strategy, which is some words float across the screen and there's some calming narration by the candidate. I thought he didn't run hard enough on his economic record as lieutenant governor, but there was this strange fantasy with a lot of people in the press corps that despite all the polls showing him winning, the Democrat winning, that just Democrats are so hopeless they'd blow this thing. And literally, look, there might be somebody on Twitter who called that Democrats would pick up 15 seats and tie or take over the House of Delegates, but I didn't know anyone who predicted that. Just the size of this rout of people in suburbs rejecting Republicans. I thought Northam hadn't quite teed that up, but he was going to win. He ended up winning and then knocking over 20 chess pieces on the other side.
I will say that we had some listeners from the Majority Report who did some type of polling with Google or Android. I didn't understand it. We posted it. It had Northam up 10 points, 45 to 55. I put it up because people asked me to, and I was shocked last night at the end of the evening.
I did see that poll. Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't know how to go into the I don't know how to go into the tabs, but there it is. So. All right. Well, let me ask you this: so with the fact that even from your perspective, Northam ran an uninspiring campaign, even from people who don't really sort of make those assessments, right? People who are just sort of not necessarily ideologically in touch or have any skin in the game other than I'm a citizen, I'm going out to vote. So what is the lesson here? Like, I know you have a piece up saying, in the wake of Gillespie, can people run with Trump but not be Trump? But it doesn't seem like it. I mean, if Virginia is the bellwether, it doesn't seem like it matters what anybody does.
It's a good point you're making. If I was a Republican, if I was Sean Hannity, who literally did this last night, I'd point out, well, Hillary won Virginia, so who cares? And I'd try to move on. There are other states where most of the Senate map in 2018 is going to be in states that broke stronger for Trump than Virginia did. The difference is, I had a theory throughout the last few months that just as Obama excited people and brought them to polls and defied projections, but couldn't really get people out in a midterm or a mayor's race, et cetera, I was wondering if the same would happen for Trump. And I had talked to groups that were trying to turn out Trump voters specifically and struggling. They were going to the same rural areas where people maybe never voted, or they they didn't think voting mattered. They used to vote Democratic, and they all went for Trump. And I was just skeptical for pure gut reasons that someone like Ed Gillespie could turn them into soldiers for him. I mean, I actually got really bearish on his campaign when he spent a week, and everybody here's the show's probably aware of this. He spent his final week raging against this ad that basically nobody saw from a Latino Victory Fund showing black and it was Hispanic and Muslim kids being chased by a man in a pickup truck with a Confederate flag and a Gillespie sticker. And literally a week of the Gillespie campaign complaining about this. They ran TV ads, and I had some Democrats tell me he should be running TV ads in the suburbs about how he's going to cut taxes, not how this ad is offensive, because he was trying to get that kind of Fox News Trump, and I twin them together because the president watches Fox News. It's where he gets it from. This umbrage, he wanted to reignite it for someone like him. It didn't come off. People were not as enthused as the Democrats, and all of this is happening too while the economy's pretty good. In Virginia, I guess that cut in the Democrats' favor, but you had voters who probably saw their 401ks go up and their wages go up and all that, and they said, not this. I'm voting against Trump. But then you saw people who, on the other side, voted for Trump, haven't seen huge gains yet, and stayed home.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that at least in this instance, and perhaps we're going to see this in 2018, is just like the maybe normal plus a little bit of human growth hormone supplement off your election dynamic when you have I hate to say this, but at least for Trump voters, a charismatic a guy who's not on the ballot this time is just not going to bring out his voters. And certainly people are criticizing Obama, in the wake of this whole DNC stuff, for not being terribly concerned with sort of the party apparatus. It's hard not to say the same thing about Donald Trump in many respects.
Well, it is and it isn't, because Trump has actually held a ton of fundraisers for the RNC, sort of ironically. I mean, he ran and repeatedly said in 2016 that he was going to self-fund, and now he literally created his reelection fund earlier than anyone else. He uses it to raise money alongside the RNC, but he made sure the RNC had twice as much money as the DNC. The RNC used that. They threw, I think, at the last minute, $5 million more in Virginia. So he's been trying to build them with money, and they have, the staff didn't fall apart, but it was kind of just it's down to kind of college Republicans going out in the last weekend. It's more that it's just those voters who came out once for him. Democrats had this. I mean, you can't overestimate how much confidence they have today. Democrats had this unshakable fear after 2016 that something was just wrong, and they didn't have. There's some secret sauce in the electorate, and they might think they're winning, and then these folks come out and vote. The people who are profiled in newspapers every 5 minutes, right?
Right.
Like, I put on my pin helmet and went to this town where a widget factory closed down, and everyone thinks Donald Trump is the Messiah. It's like, well, yeah, those people exist, and some of them are disappointed how things are going, some of them are happy, but they're actually outnumbered. And one other point I'd make is it helps if your candidates are not subject to a surprise FBI probe in the final week. I mean, everyone hates when Hillary Clinton says that and complains about that, and she says she's shifting blame. But I think that Republicans are thinking today, boy, we can't seem to stop talking about Hillary Clinton, but we're in a problem if not every Democratic candidate running against in 2018 is Hillary Clinton being investigated by the FBI. It turns out that puts some points on the board for us that we can't get back.
Yeah, and so in terms of the swing, where is the Virginia State House? Why is that so important in terms of numbers?
Well, psychologically, again, I don't know what to compare this to. It's 2010, people thought most elections there's enough analysis to say, oh, well, they're going to pick this up. This is the kind of thing that happened in 2010, where Democrats weren't even paying attention to like the North Carolina legislature, and all of a sudden, poof, it's gone.
Right.
So Republicans had gerrymandered this legislature for themselves in 2011. the Democrats controlled the Senate in Virginia, Republicans controlled the House. They literally drew this so that they could not lose it. And they went into Election Day with a 66 to 34 seat majority. Democrats thought at best they would maybe take back 7 seats. So, tee it up. So they have the governor's office, and maybe they win the Senate in 2019. So instead what happened was in the Richmond area and Tidewater and in Northern Virginia and in Roanoke, which is not a huge city, but has enough of an urban center. Every place where there were suburbs, basically, they broke so hard against Republicans that they just lost this. So functionally, even if they win every recount, Republicans are maybe they went from a 34-seat majority to maybe a 2 or 3 seat majority.
And that's if they win the recounts.
That's if everything that goes recount they win. They may just be in a tied place. They don't really have a chance for the rest of the decade of being in that kind of control. And they just that's a level of that's a 10-year plan they had. That's literally one thing Ed Gillespie worked on. He was trying to elect as many Republicans to state legislatures in 2010 so that they could do this for a decade. It turns out if you had growth in suburbs, 2, a backlash against Trump, that you can wipe that out. You don't have this in every state. I think if you look at a state like Pennsylvania, which is less dynamic in a lot of places that were gerrymandered, just people have moved out. There's not as many college-educated types and immigrants moving in. You might not see as much movement, but this suggests that the 1,000 seats Democrats lost in the last 8 years, they might take back 600-700 of them conservatively, and that puts the lock on gerrymandering for 2020 or 2021, I should say. That's why it's important.
That's why this is so key. And so, in terms of the dynamic, what we saw was people want to come out and vote against, in many respects, vote against Donald Trump is part of the motivation. And the people who supported Donald Trump, they just were not inspired to come home because Donald Trump wasn't, on their TV, doing his comedy routine and having people come out to support him. And so when you show up at the poll, people are coming to pull the lever for Northam, and they're also pulling the lever for the other Democrats who are running. Is that what happens? I mean, because I heard people talking about reverse coattails, and I'm like, are really the delegates that, dynamic that they're bringing people out who don't want to vote against Ed Gillespie or vote for Northam?
That did happen. So Run for Something, this group Amanda Littman founded, which got a lot of press, I think deservedly. All it did was try to correct this impression with, I should change that. Harness this idea after the 2016 election among a lot of liberals that I have been too disengaged in politics. Who is this guy who runs my school board? Who is my state rep? Why don't I just run against him? And it said, okay, we have a campaign experience. We're going to give you the tools to do that. Just the basic tools of how to run a campaign. They were convinced, especially when they thought it might be a tighter race for Northam. They were convinced they were helping pull him over the line because, instead of just you live in Manassas or you live in Roanoke and a Democrat comes to your door trying to help you vote for the governor. Instead of that, you maybe had a state rep candidate come to your house 3 times or leave door, and you saw their ads, and there was engagement because that gerrymander I mentioned, there was a sort of learned helplessness for a lot of Democrats. They just, because these gerrymanders were so tight for most of the decade, they didn't contest half of these races. And Virginia's unusually great test ground for this because Virginia had literally enough districts, 17 districts, that went for Hillary Clinton in 2016, but Republicans had drawn to elect their own candidates.
Right.
It just was kind of a pipe dream that all those districts would go Democratic. It appears that almost all of them did. And not every state's like that. But what Democrats have seen in other places, at Michigan last night, I mean, I've been compiling all these races today, and in Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, they've got a district that used to go for Obama, went for Trump by 20 points. It went for the Democrats. Went for Trump this last time by 4, went for the Democrat by 20. They've got these state legislative races all year that you've heard about where in Oklahoma were 3 of them where Trump won them and then they won them by 5 to 10 points. They've got all these situations where it turns out that running for state office is not easy per se, but with like some basic tools and money, you can be in the hunt and you can catch a wave. And that was the difference for the longest time. Is I think a criticism of the quote unquote establishment Democrats under Obama. But ironically, this community organizer didn't pay attention to the DNC, and you had the DNC and other party organizations saying, we need here's 270. That's what we need to get. Who cares about the rest of it? And that's gone.
Right.
I mean, you now have an active base that's going to try to contest everything it can. And I mean, some of them will lose. One of the good candidates in Virginia last night was the one who ran against the one of the most powerful Republicans in the deepest southwest part of the state. The kind of it's like running against the congressman from Wyoming. Like, you're going to lose. But they didn't run anyone for a few years, and they ran somebody who won. In Missouri, there's a state Senate district that Democrats did not contest, I think, any time this decade. They ran a candidate. She lost by 8 points. There wasn't much more on the ballot, but they're finding just have the conversation with voters, and maybe, who knows, what something happens.
And certainly if your neighbor is running and you hadn't voted before, you're going to come out and vote, and you're going to pull the you're going to pull the lever for Northam because you were out there voting for your neighbor who's a Democrat. What also strikes me is that this opens up the door, and maybe this door has already been opened and people have already entered into it, but you had a member of DSA wipe out, I guess it was the whip in the House of Delegates. And it suggests to me that there's a lot of places where Democrats have not contested in the past where people who the Democratic establishment would not normally support have a real opportunity to go into these races and be part of this wave on some level.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. They, I don't know what the Republican counterattack to this is going to be. I think it's going to be raising more money to spend a bunch on TV ads saying, such and such blogger who's now running for Congress is a pedophile or whatever it is. But again, as a reporter who's covered, I think I've been to 49 states, I find all the time people know who the president is, have no friggin' idea who represents them in the state legislature. And it just seems like people have figured out there is a opening there where you can have the conversation, talk to as many people as possible, and compete. Even if you don't win, you change the dynamics of the whole election because people are a little bit more engaged, a little bit more aware of this. I mean, and frankly, Bernie Sanders, who had this strange, people could try to rope him into the Virginia race in a strange way because he didn't back Ralph Northam after endorsing Tom Perriello. His group was founded just on this, and it has only been mostly been plotting through and winning these school board seats and city council seats and state rep races. And his insight was like, look, I'm Bernie Sanders. I have to my surprise, a gigantic positive brand. If I send out an email and say, hey, vote for this candidate for mayor of your town, and 1,000 more people come out, that's the ball game in a lot of places.
Right. And of course, that if that happens, enough places around the state, those people are going to end up voting for Northam anyways. And so he's it's sort of a stealth support for the top of the ticket there. All right. So all right, let me ask you this: is in your reporting, as you're going around talking, because I've been to at least 2 or 3 meetings in the New York area to support races like some of these House delegate races in Virginia.
Yeah.
And is it your sense that to the extent that there's any type of institutional support or support that's coming in to help these candidates, is it coming from groups like these, like unofficial groups or Indivisible or Swing Left or is it coming from the DNC? Is the DNC sort of like behind trying to play catch up? Are they involved in it? What's happening on that level?
The DNC is in this uncomfortable but interesting position where their brand is terrible with Democrats. I think when you see these polls where ask people what they think of each party and they're bad, a lot of that is that you've got left-wingers who think that the Democratic Party is corrupt because of 2016. And that fight's not going to end anytime soon. And the DNC, they're not stupid. They're aware of this. So what they've been trying to do is, 1, keep their heads above water with fundraising. 2, mostly become like a toolkit for these people. So, okay, Flippable helped draw donors to your district, and Indivisible helped you find activists, and you've through maybe Progressive Change Campaign Committee, you've done candidate training. What we're going to do is, help you find the voter files so you know who to turn out, and show you this text program where on Election Day people can, roam around, use networks of their friends to say, hey, everybody, I'm going to vote. You should vote for this guy. So I'm being a little bit circuitous just because I know the DNC is kind of waiting a couple weeks to study the results in Virginia and see what worked for them.
Right.
But they become kind of more. At the moment, they're more of a toolkit organization, which is more than they were under Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I mean, that's the interesting thing covering them around the Donna Brazile book too, is that none of them try to defend the way the party was. They just it's like it almost feels like talking to people who invested everything in Bernie Madoff, right? They're like, I put all the money there for 20 years. I never paid attention. Like they were blown away by how bad the party structure was when they just kind of outsourced everything to President Obama. So now they've got. I mean, I bet as a reporter, I bet pretty early on this stuff. At least being interesting if it didn't work, because I saw it with the Tea Party. I saw, and a point I always make is. Michael Steele's management of the Republican Party in 2009 and 10 was terrible. They were getting smoked on fundraising by, of all people, Tim Kaine, who's running the DNC. He was stumbling and making gaffes, and people were calling for him to resign every 2 weeks. Didn't matter because there were so many activist groups filling in the gap. And same thing with Trump. They were brawling throughout the entire campaign. I think my paper had completely accurate A1 headlines about how the party was falling into a civil war. It didn't matter because they had the activists.
Interesting. All right. Lastly, any election that stands out to you? Obviously, we've talked about Virginia, but is there one that you were surprised about? You think is more important than the attention it's getting? Anything like that?
I think the Virginia House of Delegates races are the most surprising, but these suburban, basically this wipeout for Republicans in suburbs. I mean, even I was in Parsippany, New York. It's an hour from New York City, kind of wealthy community. It's always been wealthy. It's always been Republican. I was there, and Phil Murphy, who was going to win the governor's race, spent time campaigning for this guy who was going to become the municipal chair of Parsippany. The kind of thing, again, Democrats just never competed. It was, it's going to be a 20-point, who cares? We're going to lose. They went all in. This guy won. And same thing happened in the suburbs around Philadelphia. I would say that, and I'm going to give you like a 15-part answer to a one-part question, but I'd also say all the victories for the Democratic Socialists of America back candidates. Like that 3 years ago, unthinkable that people would just say, I'm a socialist, I'm your local Democrat. People say, that's cool with me. So you have a DSA member, Lee Carter, being elected in Virginia. You have Larry Krasner, who's the Black Lives Matter lawyer and DSA-backed candidate, winning DA of Philadelphia, and you have a bunch, I'm still kind of counting these guys up, bunch of out Democratic Socialists winning in cities. So you have, that politics is a little bit more acceptable in the suburbs, and it's completely acceptable in cities. And if I was a kind of Republican looking trying to predict 10 years from now, that would terrify me. That an ideology I thought I had buried with Ronald Reagan is thriving because of a backlash against Trump. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Well, Dave, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. We should also add Rob Astorino got wiped out. That guy's not going to be running for governor again, I guess, in New York State, which I found sort of interesting. Westchester is not exactly the hotbed of Democratic Socialists. It is not. Dave Weigel, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, folks. I'm debating here now if I should just do a quick rundown for everybody on the fun half, the free half, and then we'll go into the fun half of the program. I probably should. Just to wrap up this day, because it was a lot of stuff that was crazy. And we'll talk more about this in the fun half, but the interesting thing, and I would like it to be otherwise, but I just don't think it's the case, is that there was no ideological consistency, at least on the context of the left. There was really no ideological story here on the left. I think Northam is going to be
I may have favored Tom Perriello, over Northam, but I think in the main, he's going to be a pretty good governor in Virginia. And I say that maybe partially because I'm predisposed, because I thought Terry McAuliffe ended up being better than I anticipated he would be. But we have a broad cross-section of Democratic candidates that won. You had a guy from the DSA who beat, and we'll talk more about him in the fun half, but you had a guy from the DSA who beat not only a longtime incumbent, but the majority whip in the House of Delegates. And when you're the majority whip, more often than not, maybe always, it means that you have the ability to raise a ton of cash because you raise that ton of cash for yourself, and then you have so much more ability to raise cash. You raise cash for other people, and then when you come to them and say, hey, we want you to vote this way, they go, well, I owe you one. And my understanding is he did not have a good relationship for whatever reason. I don't know anything about the details of this. But the story is that he was not sharing data with the Virginia Democrats. So clearly a lot of that support came outside of the normal channels, probably at least in part via the DSA. But the point being is we have a situation, it's quite clear, and we certainly had it in Virginia. In 2015, the Democrats only challenged 23 Republican delegates. This year, they challenged 54 of them. Now, Alec McGillis tweeted out, that is the Trump effect. And I think that's probably true, but it's not clear to me how many more of those 27, 28 are the Trump effect and how many are also, frankly, the Bernie effect and the spinoff from that, right? Because in a world where Hillary Clinton is president, you still have a Bernie Sanders who is now in the Senate majority although I guess it's conceivable she could have won and lost the Senate, but unlikely. You still have an ascendant Bernie Sanders with an organization that is out there encouraging people to run. People coming off of that campaign looking to run. Nevertheless, certainly Trump has added to those numbers and has grown the different organizations that Weigel went through that are supporting people running for the first time. But here's the thing. Whatever that number was yesterday, whatever the number was of people who were looking to jump into a city council race, looking to jump into a state Senate race, into a municipal race, that number is larger by 20% today, I would guess, because more people are going to be encouraged to do it. And here's the other thing that is clear is that because of the nature of a wave, that seats that weren't contested in the past, there's an opportunity for people who would not get mainstream Democratic support in the way that they would need. There's a chance for them to sneak in and actually win these elections. There's a really, and I don't want to say unprecedented opportunity, but pretty close to unprecedented opportunity. And the only reason why I don't say unprecedented is because there may be a precedent. I'm just not aware of it. Where everything is in play. And so you may get congressional seats that have not been contested in years. And it gives an opportunity for like organizations like the DSA, for parties like the Green Party, to step in and say, like, nobody's challenged this Republican for a decade. And there's so much happening in this district just in terms of how many people are going to go out and vote for a city council person that has been encouraged to run for anything, there's sort of a built-in, there's a wave. And so there's an opportunity for some real, from some very unexpected wins and from people who are not, necessarily traditional candidates or candidates who have traditional backing. So this is, it's encouraging. In Virginia, 34% of the voters said that expressing opposition to Trump was the reason for their vote. I mean, really the key, I think, is what Weigel said. Barack Obama could not get his coalition out in the off-year elections. It appears that Donald Trump cannot do that either. And what is a little bit different is that generally Democrats don't go out and vote against, or people who vote for a Democrat aren't doing that to vote against somebody. And that's what we're getting in this off-year election. That didn't take a lot of effort to nationalize that race, right? I mean, Northam specifically didn't want to. Maybe in the last week he started raising it, and it was already nationalized. And women made the difference. I remember retweeting I think it was from Indivisible. They were sending, it was a busload of people from New York. And there was a picture of all the people in the bus who were going down there to canvass. And I think there was a couple of men on there. But largely, this has been the case since the election of Donald Trump. Middle-aged women have been driving much of this. They favored Northam by 16 points over Gillespie. Northam's margin is more than twice as wide as the margin Hillary Clinton won those voters by last year. Married women voted for Northam by 10 points. Trump actually had a 1-point lead with that group. Now, of course, the key here is that far more Democrats came out than normally come out in an off-year election. I mean, that is the key. It is just turnout. And that does not diminish the problem with gerrymandered districts. But in this instance, you can build a seawall that is 11 feet high, and it will stop most of a storm surge. But when the storm surge is 12 feet high, then it goes over the 11-foot high wall. That's basically what it comes down to. In New Jersey, and so again, the Virginia Delegate House, it is tied right now at 48-48. There are 4 recounts. Democrats lead in 2, Republicans lead in the other 2. Chances are that's what it's going to look like. It'll be 50-50. I don't know what happens, how that tie is broken, but it could be do we establish that yet, that it's the lieutenant governor breaks that tie? If so, it will be the second African-American ever elected to statewide office in Virginia, Justin Fairfax. But going around the country, in New Jersey, as expected, Phil Murphy easily won the governorship there from Chris Christie. In Washington State, there was a special election in a, I guess it's a suburb of Seattle, maybe. Sort of a wealthy suburb. So Republican district. Democrat Manka Dhingra won that special election. Her winning that gives Democrats control of all levers of government in Washington State, creating this wall of blue between Washington, Oregon, and California. And like we mentioned yesterday, governors of those 3 states are already getting together on all sorts of immigration, environmental, global warming, I guess, energy initiatives, healthcare. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. Democrats added to their majority in the New Jersey State Senate. They won a Republican-held seat in the New Hampshire State House. They won a mayorship in St. Petersburg, Florida. In Georgia, Democrats picked up 3 seats in the state houses there and destroyed the Georgian supermajority, which is huge. Sheila Oliver won lieutenant governor race in New Jersey. I don't know if she's the first lieutenant governor, African-American governor in New Jersey, but certainly noteworthy. There were 2 Latinas elected to the House. Oh, and in Virginia, Danica Roem, who I guess she was a journalist, won Virginia's 13th District House of Delegates. We mentioned her before. She is the first trans woman to win, I guess, in in Virginia. There was a trans woman, an African-American trans woman, who won a seat on the Minneapolis City Council. So she was the first openly transgender African-American woman ever elected to public office in the U.S. I mentioned that Danica Roem ran against a 73-year-old, 26-year incumbent. And he was the guy who proposed a bill restricting which bathrooms transgender people could use. So he went down. I don't know how much that played in the race. I have a feeling it played maybe on the margins, but for the most part, I think she just won because there was a wave, and she sounds like an incredibly competent state rep. Talking about like potholes, talking about, bringing Medicaid to her district, et cetera, et cetera. In Philly, as you know, Larry Krasner won the DA race. He's a civil rights attorney. He represented Occupy Philly, Black Lives Matter. He sued the city something like 50 times as a defense attorney. He'll be one of the most progressive, maybe in the country. We mentioned Lee Carter won. Lee Carter was a 30-year-old Marine vet from Manassas County. He is a member of DSA. Just to give you a sense of what took place in Virginia last night, this is what took place in the Lee Carter, I guess, celebration party. Last month, it was reported that party leaders had abandoned Carter because he declined to report campaign metrics like the number of doors he'd knocked on and the amount of money he'd raised. I'm not clear why he decided not to do that. But apparently he said he ceased reporting to the House caucus after multiple information security lapses in which confidential information that we reported to the House caucus was leaked outside the party infrastructure. So I don't know what was going on there. But he decided, I'll just go on my own. And I guess I should amend that. He didn't quite go it on his own. Here is Lee Carter winning as a Democrat, member of the DSA. I suspect there's some other DSA members there because they started off his speech by singing "Solidarity Forever."
So, there's a song that comes to mind. Those of you that know, join in. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run,
There can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. But what force on earth is greater than the feeble strength of one? For the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. Thank you, Lee.
That was a song written coming out of a strike in, I think it was a miners' strike in Pennsylvania or Kentucky or somewhere around there in the around the 1910s or somewhere around that decade, and sung by the International Workers of the World. I think it was adopted, but it came out of a strike then, and it's become broadly a union song, and apparently a DSA a tune as well. So that happened in Virginia.
Kanawha coal miners strike in 1914.
The Kanawha coal miners strike in 19. Did you know that off the top of your head?
No, I looked it up.
Yeah, look at R2D2 over here.
I was gonna say. Wow, Jesus. All right. So that is. I think we mentioned Maine expanding its Medicaid. Of course, Governor LePage is going to do everything he can to prevent that from happening. He may run out the clock until he leaves. There's an election in 2018. I don't think he's up for re-election. His whoever follows him will still be committed, will be obligated to institute an expansion of Medicaid. We're going to talk maybe in the fun half about how Donald Trump's HHS wants to put all sorts of draconian measures on that, but we will talk about that in a bit.
Listener Ryan writes in, says, a legislative tie in Virginia would not be broken by Lieutenant Governor. A power-sharing agreement would be worked out.
Okay, I guess that must be the Senate. And the Senate, the Virginia Senate, I think they have maybe a two-person lead. So this is all stuff in 2018 when one can anticipate. I mean, it's really not too different of a situation, right? It's an off-year election. There's not going to be a governorship there. So in Virginia, one would anticipate if this energy continues, Republicans have every reason to believe that they're going to lose control of that. And this is huge because again, 2020 is when the new census comes out. You need to have more control of state houses and governments by Democrats in 2020 if you want to impact the redistricting. That's huge. So, good night for the Democrats. There may be a couple other races I'm missing. I can't think of them off the top of my head. Bill de Blasio just eked out a victory against Bo Dietl by something like 82 points. I don't think he came in second. I can't remember.
He's the first Democrat to win re-election in New York City since Ed Koch.
Wow.
It's crazy. And the whole thing is crazy.
Totally crazy.
De Blasio, he's just not very charismatic. But
that's right.
Plowing forward, got some decent stuff done. Hopefully this environment, though, will push him to get to 2.0. Like he was claiming, to his credit, he called himself a social democrat in 2013. It was probably the only other mainline figure besides Bernie. But now that there's all this momentum, he's going to need to step it up with some things like affordable housing, in my opinion. But I did vote for him.
Yes. Well, it's if there's anything more transactional of a job than being mayor of New York City, the only thing I can imagine it would be maybe governor of New York State. Although
that's obviously,
but mayor I think is even more transactional. So, but
and
we'll
you have
see.
a lot less power.
Yep.
People don't realize New York City mayors are hemmed in by the legislature.
The conventional, the Constitution Convention was shot down in New
That's a
York,
good thing
comes
for
back up in 2037. Yes, in my opinion, it's a good thing. If we control the Senate and the House handily in New York in 2037, I'll vote for it. If I can get my old, decrepit hands around the ballot at that point. Here's Bo Dietl. He writes, good morning, Frank Morano. I don't know who Frank Morano is.
I think the point still comes across.
Oh, yes. No, he's, I guess, the Reform Party candidate who did better than Bo Dietl. Good morning, Frank Morano. I lost last night, but I'm still a multimillionaire. You're, misspelled, Y-O-U-R, still a fat loser in the looser Reform Party, also does not know how to spell the word loser. There is Bo Dietl's.
He might have been maybe potentially drinking.
Swan song. Well, but he didn't misspell. He didn't write, you're a souser. He wrote, you're a loser, and spelled it with 2 O's. So, all right, folks, going to take a quick break, head into the fun half. I am now turning the phones on and firing up the IM machine. Just a reminder, we need your replies for the survey. If you are a listener of the program, you listen to the free show, go do our survey. If you're a member, if you watch on YouTube, go take our survey. It's at majoritysurvey.com. Click through the link that best describes your relationship to the show. Are you a member? In other words, do you have access to the fun half? Do you just have access to the first half, the free half? Or do you watch on YouTube? Click through that. The survey's 5 or 6 minutes long. Won't take you very long. If you want to become a member, become a member. Go to jointhemajorityreport.com. Jointhemajorityreport.com. It is your membership that makes this show possible day in, day out. JustCoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY. Check out, we've got on our Twitter feed and in yesterday's podcast post, the link. If you are good with numbers, you want to check out those the polling stats. Fascinating. Also, I would add, check out last night's TMBS. People, not the least of which Michael, are raving about the opening of the show last night, where they did my understanding this was just a recreation. It was not an actual audio of when Rand Paul got beat up.
It was illuminating despite it being a dramatic recreation.
It was a dramatic recreation. So you might want to check that out. Go. You can either do it through iTunes or go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/Sam Seder. And we'll see you in the fun half.
C'est une poupée qui fait non. C'est une poupée qui fait non. Toute la journée, elle fait non. C'est une poupée qui fait non. Toute la journée, elle fait non. C'est une poupée qui fait non, 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 non. Toute la journée, elle fait non, 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 non. Elle est tellement
We are back. Sam Seder, fun half of the program, ladies and gentlemen. It's fun. It's fun to have an election where you're just not like.
I still don't trust it. I feel
somewhat shocked. Yeah, honestly, like you're not just sort of shell shocked and sort of you can't believe.
Reassess your entire future.
I didn't have one moment where I was like, I can't believe Northam is the governor of Virginia. I just can't believe it. I didn't have that moment. Like the last election.
Oh. Highs and lows.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, Steve Doocy on Fox News is one of the great political analysis and analysts, I should say. And Fox had a serious project to attend to this morning, and that was, how do we make this crushing defeat? I mean, it was a crushing defeat. No one, if I had said on this program, or if anybody had said on this program, if a caller had called in, if there just, you could not find anyone in the country yesterday who would have predicted Democrats may very well take the House of Delegates. They will tie. They'll pick up 16 seats in the House of Delegates. Everyone to a person would have said that person doesn't know what they're talking about. The people would say, that's surprising that they knew that's how many it would take to tie it up because they know so little of what they're talking about. But that's what happened. And so Fox is in overdrive, trying to make this seem like it was a sort of anachronistic or an anomaly, I should say, that, this is, they just, Ed Gillespie wasn't, even though Steve Bannon was saying just 4 days ago, Ed Gillespie is Donald Trump, essentially. This is what Steve Doocy had to say today.
You know, it's a wake-up call for establishment Republicans. If you don't embrace the leader of your party, why do you want to win, and why do you think you can? Here's Laura Ingraham.
Wait, why do you want to win?
It's a great point. You don't really want it. Exactly. Where do these guys get this stuff? They're geniuses.
But when you hear stuff like this, it's exciting. And I'll tell you why. Because the Republican Party is Republican candidates are being pulled in two very distinct directions. And now, look, I said this in the run-up to the election, so with Trump, so I still don't know if I believe it. But when you address your Republican base, you're going to alienate the rest of the country. And the one difference between why I have more faith in saying that now than I did in retrospect about a year ago at this time, a year and a week ago, is that people seem to be coming out to vote. And that's why the Democrats, ultimately lost in those elections, that they just did not mobilize enough people to come out and vote. Sean Hannity also covered the election last night as he threw to Tucker Carlson.
He was taken up.
As he was taking up the coverage from Tucker Carlson. Here he is starting off his show, basically, and then literally, I mean, first of all, it's 9 o'clock East Coast. Look at what is on the crawl. They're talking about like a small Pasco County Sheriff said no survivors were found. Something went down. Like there's not even a mention that there's elections across the country. They're going to avoid this so much. Here is Sean Hannity picking up the baton from the morbidly depressed Tucker Carlson.
Tucker, by the way, those results in Virginia, New Jersey, New York, by the way, not states Donald Trump won. Welcome to...
There you go. That was it. That is the story.
And that's the difference in their intelligence levels. You know, Tucker is sort of intellectually adequate enough to understand what happened.
Well,
Hannity just goes with, it's Trump.
Hannity is also a fundamentalist Christian, and so for him, it's just like, I ignore these things.
And also, I could tell you, Samantha, not a bright guy.
Also,
not
a bright guy.
A bright guy.
Georgia, where you lost 3 seats and you lost your supermajority, a red state.
What? I didn't hear what you said. Those were gay districts, by the way.
I can
A lot
tell
of people
you,
don't know gay
those districts in Virginia, some were purple, some were red for decades. Decades. Meanwhile, the recriminations will begin, and they've got to try and figure this out. And I don't know that there is a solution. I mean, maybe in 2018, Donald Trump goes around and brings voters out and can convince them that their congressman needs to have a vote because Donald Trump has come by. But, and
we
maybe
need
that'll
all 3 branches of Congress again.
We did it. We had it last time. We did nothing except for cut my taxes. And we need it again, just in case I need another tax cut.
Just like what MacArthur did when he founded this country.
So here is the guy from CNN who is explaining. This is the first thing they heard about from Gillespie when he came out. Here is the CNN reporter.
Well, it's not a very positive one for Republicans here in Virginia. They do not feel encouraged at all by the numbers that are coming in. In fact, I've been in contact with a senior Republican advisor. This is someone who has direct knowledge of the campaign and is also looking very closely at these numbers. And this person described this to me tonight as a total Dem sweep. He said crushing numbers, and he also said that it is over. This advisor also telling me that this is a referendum on Donald Trump and his presidency. This is completely a national result, and likely Dems who are federal are the only ones turning out, meaning that these are voters that are coming out in big numbers, basically in opposition to Donald Trump. So this is an important development in this race tonight. We did not expect that this was going to be a race that we could call so early tonight. Not that we've called it yet, but right now I can tell you, Anderson, Republicans here in Richmond not encouraged at all by what they're seeing with these vote totals.
I just want crushing numbers. Crushing defeat on a referendum for Donald Trump. That is what they believe in Virginia. Who knows how that's going to be taken to heart, but it's going to be interesting to see how this implicates the tax plan, how it implicates other things going forward.
You do know, Rachel, this vastly increases the odds that we have to fucking nuke North Korea. You do know that, right?
There was...
I know that you're having a great time in your little estrogen jewel cooker here, enjoying the fag results from last night. But we might need to wipe some yellow fucking people out.
I honestly was tuning into that speech from Donald Trump and anticipating him saying, like, just heard that we maybe lose the Virginia
didn't go great, so I'll be ordering in the airstrikes.
This
is my nuclear Negroid.
This is my black guy who holds my suitcase.
This is the black guy with the football. Time to nuke some Koreans.
No, but to be fair, Donald Trump did not initiate a nuclear strike on North Korea last night. That probably had to do with the fact that he was in Seoul, South Korea. It was hard. You know, there was more sort of threats. It was hard to sort of parse what he was saying. Apparently, the reporting now is that Donald Trump is going to insist that China end all economic involvement with North Korea.
Just end it.
Chop, chop.
Just stop. Chop, chop, guys.
I
am your leader. I run you now.
Of course.
I make deal.
I'm sure that the Chinese leader, who's now been written into his constitution, will say, whatever you say, Mr. Trump.
Or maybe the Chinese leader will literally say, yeah, whatever you say, giant moron barbarian man
they are
who I can play even while I'm in a coma potentially.
They're taking him into where is it that they're taking him into? They're taking him into some special house. I can't remember what it is. They're giving him the red carpet treatment. Where they're taking him into sort of the lost. What is that? The lost
Forbidden City.
Forbidden City. Yeah, they're taking him into Beijing's Forbidden City.
He's going to do something horrible.
First time
I'm going to break a vase.
It's the first time I think that any head of state has been ever led into the Forbidden City and
oh my God, they know how to roll him so easily.
This is totally.
Wow, the first one.
Is that right? Oh my God!
I was the first head of state in the Forbidden City. They're giving Ivanka a discount on sweatshops. What do you guys want?
Here's the
literally
deal.
Just name it. What
Here's
do you guys want?
All you say is, we're not doing business with North Korea, and then just do it. Just do it. Do the business. Don't worry.
Matter of fact,
This
nuking North Korea is less likely now because you guys were so.
Do you remember
nice.
the chocolate cake we had? This is almost as good as that chocolate cake. I mean, he's getting so rolled
You guys
here.
have
It is
concubines
hilarious and good
still?
for the Chinese. Good for the Chinese. But here is Donald Trump.
Barbarian management, man.
Speaking to the South Korean National Assembly. Of course, he is, when he is not promoting a nuclear holocaust that will involve surely some of the folks in this room, he's also promoting one of the best destinations in the world for an 18-hole experience that you will never, ever forget.
And Korean golfers are some of the best on earth. In fact, and you know what I'm going to say, the women's U.S. Open was held at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey. And it just happened to be won by a great Korean golfer.
Oh, yes, now is the part of the speech where he will acknowledge the female Korean golfer. Many people call you the Mexicans of Asia. Well, when was the last time you saw a Mexican on the PGA Tour? Am I right? Not even his caddies. Not even his caddies.
You know what I'm going to say. I guarantee you everyone in that room was like, no, I don't.
We have no idea what the fuck you're going to say. Hopefully it doesn't involve all of us
I would
dying.
bet that 75% of that room, even after he said it, were like, wait, what did he say?
What the hell is that?
What is he talking about?
Lost in translation.
Many people.
The speech, if you missed the speech, I'll graph it out for you. The first third was as if he was reading a Wikipedia page on South Korea to the South Korean Assembly. He's like, you may not know this, but you went through a horrible war. You're a very industrious people. Then there was a part in the middle where he talked about his golf club. And then he talked about how they better not do anything because I don't want to be made to do anything. You know, I'm the type of guy who would do something. And that was basically the speech.
That was basically the speech. Many people call you people the dogs of Asia. Well, you know what? I don't agree with them. I think it's totally unfair. And I was having chocolate cake with she, great guy. And I said, you guys should really stop calling the Koreans the dogs of Asia. And by the way, you know how they say in politics? It's not personal. It's not personal. If I need to nuke North Korea and hundreds of thousands of you die because of shells and radiation, that's because of an election result in Virginia that you had nothing to do with, folks. It's not your fault.
Let's go to the phones. You calling from a 978 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Sean. I'm calling from Hamden, Connecticut.
Hello, Sean. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to bring up, well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for what you do. I've been listening for around 2 years now, and I really appreciate
thank you for
what
listening.
you guys offer, and especially to people who can't really afford to pay for a podcast. The fact that you offer for free to members that are struggling financially is awesome. Along that line, I'm a graduate student at Yale, and I'm not sure if you saw some of the pieces that came out yesterday regarding the GOP tax reform plan and how it would affect graduate students.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great day for Democrats. Last night was awesome, and I hope we can continue that in 2018. But that kind of scares the crap out of me. I'm a graduate student. I have 2 kids. I'm trying to raise a family. My stipend is $30,000. And basically what this would do is the tuition waiver that's used by graduate students would no longer be considered tax exempt. Sorry, I'm getting a little nervous.
Yeah, no, I mean,
and
go ahead.
that would mean that basically a bunch of graduate students, a good percentage or even the majority of their income or taxable income would not even be money that they're receiving. It's just money that is paid by the school so they can attend. So a graduate student making $30,000 a year would now be taxed at potentially, like they were making $60,000 a year.
Right, you're getting taxed
wondering,
for basically the services in kind that you're getting from the university.
Exactly. And so my question to you, this was kind of a downer yesterday, but I'm trying to see if you can explain to me where this stands right now. Like, I know you were talking maybe earlier this week about how some of the GOP reforms proposed right now, like the things in where medical costs would not be deductible. So is this a consequence of them trying to make it deficit neutral?
Yes.
And so basically, they just want to reduce taxes on the wealthy, and in order to do that, they just have to come up with the money anywhere else they can.
Yes. And the reason why they were trying to make it deficit neutral is because of the Byrd rule in the Senate. Now,
sorry, go ahead.
Because they want to make this permanent. If they can't make it deficit neutral, they'll do it within like a 10-year window, which will mean that these tax cuts will expire 10 years out. So the only thing I can tell you is that the bill is going to change. I don't know if that part of it is going to change. There's no way to know. I imagine that there are people at Yale right now and other schools who are contemplating how would we get around this. And I suspect that they have some ideas, but not all the ideas. Maybe they say, hey, our graduate courses are all going to be now extremely cheap. They're not a $41,000 value. They're actually like a $1,500 value. I don't know how they'll do it. They're going to have to do something.
I mean, I could see private schools getting around it that way, but I mean, public schools are kind of limited in how they can change their actual charge for tuition. I just think it's like it would completely change the landscape of graduate education, and especially in STEM fields and like science and tech, it would decimate our country's ability to produce.
Well, you know what you're going to see. What you'll see in that scenario is you'll see corporations coming in and saying, we're going to pay your taxes on this, or we're going to sponsor, although I guess that theoretically would be taxable too. But it would be, they'll turn it into some type of like job program. Like, we're going to give you an advance. and you need to come work for us for 2 or 3 years, or if you develop anything, we own it, or who knows what. But it's horrific, and I don't think. Look, it's unclear to me whether or not there's a constituency within the Republican Party that would actually care about this, but I'm convinced that there's a constituency that is like, good, let's take it out of those all those liberals in these ivy towers.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree. I think that's how it's going to be sold is, these liberals that are going to college to benefit themselves. They're going to make a ton of money on the other side, so why are we subsidizing their education? In reality,
the one thing that's good about what happened yesterday, even to take a very narrow worldview of it, the good that comes out of it yesterday is that it's going to make it harder for people to vote for this, because the Democrats are going to stay more resolved, right? Like, you can't be a Democrat and look at this and say like, to the extent that there's any message that came out of yesterday, it's you don't want to be with Donald Trump. And
yeah, exactly.
And so, all I can tell you is that we'll follow it and we'll see what happens. It's horrible. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah, I just want to, your listeners, I think, are some of the more active people, and last night was great, but don't lose sight of the things that are currently going on, and continue to call and apply pressure.
Absolutely.
Where it can be applied, so.
Absolutely.
It's not like these people's class warfare against anybody that isn't ultra wealthy is going to stop for a second.
I hung up on myself by mistake. Let me call back in.
Congratulations. You just cocked yourself.
Thank you for calling in the Majority Report. The host will be with you shortly.
Oh, I am the host. Let's go to Comrade Jeb on the IM. Great news last night, but the third way wing are already pushing their ass backwards narrative on what happened. A lot of usual suspects already claiming last night was a rejection of bigotry and partisanship, but the exit poll numbers don't seem to reflect this in that kind of reductionist
way. You gotta
way.
read. We talked about it on this show, and I had not read it yet, and I read it and did a segment on it on my show last night. Molly Ball's piece, I think it's called The Trump Safari in The Atlantic, where she went with some third way researchers. And it's funny in and of itself because the people from Third Way that she tagged along with are some of the most delusional people in modern America, because they actually seem to genuinely believe, I guess to their credit, they believe this stuff,
right.
But it makes them so just utterly delusional. It's the only word. But then at the end of the article, she also talks how the whole process of them doing these focus groups in Wisconsin is just their worldview just getting smacked around in every possible way, both in
it's
good
like the lost city of Z.
Yes, they're just shocked, and they're shocked in ways that are, reflect terribly on them. They don't listen to what any of the union guys say about inequality and public spending, and they don't want to listen to any of the genuine racism and demagoguery that people are also expressing. And then by the end of it, though, it gets filtered at least into one report that's basically just yeah, we went out, and these Wisconsin voters, they just want a small, light touch government that doesn't divide people. They just totally filter it. They somehow find a way to warp it into their usual propaganda.
That's funny. Yeah. Look, that's what happens. And there's going to be spin. And, I mean, listen. If this was a different medium and it was a different show, I would probably give more spin on it. I happen to think that probably the vast majority of people who listen to this program more or less subscribe to, I don't have to sell them on the value of things like healthcare for all. And, the idea of free college, maybe there's people who are still debt-free college, and to the extent that we have any conservative listeners of this program, they're not going to necessarily buy into that third way stuff either. So, but yes, that's what happens after an election. Everybody tries to spin it. But there's one inescapable thing that you take away from this, and that is what happened in Virginia, and that's not necessarily guaranteed it's going to happen in 2018, but what happened in Virginia yesterday was a wave election, which means that, and the wave was against Republicans and against Donald Trump. But they're not different. I mean, let's put it this way. Voters last night did not make a difference between those people. Did not make a distinction. Calling from a 215 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. It's Mindy. How are
Mindy!
you? Sorry to call two days in a row. I'm sorry, but I just had something to say today.
Yep.
I think we're overanalyzing this. I think, well, in my little world, I think it's the middle-aged white women that are freaking the fuck out. And we're the moms, and we're the bill payers, and we're the ones that do the health insurance and all that. And we had this disgusting, hideous person that became president, and everybody woke up. Like these women, all these women, crazy women my age, just woke up. I mean, our big thing was going out to lunch before this happened. And now we're like worried about everything because this guy's so hideous, and we're mobilizing. We're making pussy hats, and we're using the word fuck, and, you know, we're not ourselves anymore because we're
Did
crazy.
you not use the word fuck before?
I didn't use it. Well, I never used the C word before, and I'm using that now. But yeah, well, I didn't use it in public as much as I am now. But I think what's happening is, like last week with the shooting in New York. I mean, everybody I knew, no, because I'm in Pennsylvania. My kid lives in New York. My girlfriend's kid lives in New York. Everybody's kid. My son's girlfriend lives on Chambers Street. Everybody knows somebody that knows somebody, or the kid that lives down there. And we were all calling each other. Like, we were doing like a chain of, is your kid alive? Is your kid alive? You know? And we're putting trackers on our kids now, phones now, and all that because we're nervous. And I think what's happening is I think the women are going nuts. And the women are going to make the difference. The women my age, the middle class, upper middle class, white, educated women are really freaking out. And I know I've been telling you this for a year, but when I think that's what it is.
Well, wait a second. I will say
What do
this.
you think?
I think you got a little bit too narrow at the end there. I think there's a lot of data to support that women, particularly middle-aged women, have been activated. But I think the reason why you perceive it as being upper middle class or wealthier than that is because that's the circle you run in. But the data will suggest that it's women, broadly speaking, particularly African American women, who are getting even more engaged. But I also say that there's data that came out from that race in Virginia that suggested that young people were also more than typically represented, and certainly, you know, under the age of 45, like Ed Gillespie got like 30% of the vote. That is unbelievable.
Right, but Sam, I have a 24-year-old, a 26-year-old, and a 28-year-old. And when they come here, all we do is talk about politics. So that's where it's coming. It's trickling down into our children. And our children are freaking out because we're freaking out.
I agree.
And also, last thing, we know that unless we go Democrat, there's never going to be gun control, period. And when we have to wake up and we have to see 26 people dead, and then there was this woman on TV that lives in Southern Springs the other day, and she's saying, God did this for a reason. He's going to make Sutherland Springs this, like, amazing place for God. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this guy was, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, they're crazy. And I just think that we are so, like last night when he was doing that speech, my friends were all texting me, like, he's nuts, he's crazy. Oh, and then another thing is we freaking hate Melania. And we hate Jared, and we hate Ivanka, and we all want to kill them.
Well, all right. Let's get to calm down.
It's the family too. It's the whole package. And I think the women are mobilizing because we're we're freaking out. We don't sleep. We're like crazy. I'm calling shows.
All right. We mean whoa. We mean shows.
I'm calling your show.
What other shows are you calling, Mindy?
No, I call Michael Signorelli loves me.
All right.
I call him too, but I have to be really. I'm in his open too, by the way.
Oh, what are you trying to leverage that now?
No, not at all.
Let Signorelli kissing your ass.
I call Michael. But last thing.
Yeah.
When my tweet, like I'm tweeting, I tweet. I have like 6,000 Twitter followers, and when I tweet something about like women and pussy hats and use the word fuck or something like that, like it gets retweeted a lot. Like things like that get retweeted. There's women. I would bet you there are so many women my age, regardless of what race, what social background they are. They're freaking out. The women are going
yes.
nuts.
I mean, I think that's true. I appreciate the call, Mindy. Say hi to Michael Signorelli.
I like him.
All right, whatever.
I mean, I have to be calm with him, and he does over-sensationalize a lot of stuff, and you have to watch what he's saying. I don't love him like you.
All right, well, I appreciate
like
that. No, thank you.
All right, have a good day,
All
and
right,
I will
bye-bye.
not call you back the rest of the week.
Mindy, you call whenever you want. Okay, well. Calling from a 610 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. Mike from Pennsylvania.
Mike from Pennsylvania.
Ah, Mike from Pennsylvania. You're here to suck my dick after you totally failed last night with your turn out the vote. I'm a depressed Bernie bitch and everything's going to be bad. And I can't read a poll the way John from San Antonio can read a poll, even with his eyes half closed. How about I smack in your fucking face? Or you apologize to me. Or we can meet anytime, anywhere, any place. You fucking name it, Mike.
Thanks for that, Michael. I appreciate
Oh, my
that a lot.
God. The show is becoming just like it's literally like just collapsing in on itself. I was watching this show, man. I was listening to this show, and a caller calls in, and then some Southern guy gets on who's mad at him about the polls, and I don't understand like why one guy would say I tried to
back on July 17th,
I tried to listen to the show, but it's just like it's like a closed loop.
I said that Mike from PA read polls the way a blind person plays
I feel like I was supposed to know who
just
Mike
like to call in
from
the day
PA
after the
was,
campaign,
and then I had to know who John from San Antonio was, and why these guys don't get along, and they're talking about polling.
I feel like calling Mike the Washington Generals to my Harlem Globetrotters would be an insult because the Washington Generals actually knew what they were doing and were supposed to play a role. They weren't just terrible at basketball. Anyways, Mike from PA could shut the fuck up.
All right, well, Mike, what's up? We have three people listening now. What?
Oh, but those three people
Listen,
love
I'm
it.
one
Those
of your
three people
most
love
popular callers for sure, guys.
Uh,
Yeah. So it was pretty good last night. Up here in the purple area of Pennsylvania, we slaughtered them. And won our county executive races, one of which was a guy whose campaign I ran last year. So that's pretty good for me. He's now county executive of Lehigh County. We won Northampton County back from, the Trumpian pieces of shit. We won a whole bunch of local races that haven't been red like ever. So
I mean, so how surprised were you?
Honestly, this is kind of where I thought we were, and I can get into this if you want. If you look at Virginia, so we won by 10 points, or 9 something.
Yep.
But look at the House of Delegates. It's 50-50 with recounts, right?
Yep.
So we won by 10, yet it's tied. That's the gerrymandering that we're facing.
Right.
And so this is the, it kind of feeds into my thesis for the House overall in the nation is I feel really optimistic about us winning all those swing districts, but there's just, they even won districts they didn't think were up, including the, House Majority Whip down there.
Right.
And so that is, it's good, but it's, not necessarily as good as we need. As good as this feels, we need better. And that's kind of the, and I feel like we're there, but it's still 50-50. And I don't mean to depress people. I'm excited and as happy as I've been in a long time because it feels like it's been forever since we had like a unabashed win. But Yeah, I mean, it's exactly where I thought we were. And I feel like this area is starting to swing back blue. But we've got to, we need to win like they won in New Jersey.
Right.
We need to win by 15.
Right.
And that's how we're going to win the House.
Well, I would imagine that if this race took place 6 months ago, it would have been closer to like 6 points, right? I mean, it's not like that things are going to get much better for them. But with that said, if we're involved in a ground war in North Korea, or if we're involved in a ground war, forget about it. But I mean, if we're involved in some type of war, if Iran is at war with Israel and Saudi Arabia, I mean, there's a lot of different things that could implicate things. Like, I don't think they're going to be rewarded for tax cuts. They're going to be able to go like, we've done something. Let's not get into the details, but we've done something. That might be sort of the absence of a deficit, right? But it won't be. I don't think they're going to be going like, we've given tax reform, and people aren't going to necessarily feel that. But there's other things that could go wrong. There's also other things that could be, people could get even more sick of Donald Trump over the next 6 months.
No, yeah, and I think that's where it's trending, and I'm optimistic that things are going that way. But, we're actually getting closer to an inflection point where the gerrymandering works really well if you stay within that one standard deviation of what you expect. But if you get outside that in a true double wave type situation, they could end up losing 80 seats or something, because then they hit the break point beyond which the gerrymandering was designed. So it can get crazy if we
explain
start
that
pumping it up
dynamic.
just a few more percent.
Explain that dynamic.
So, when you gerrymander, you crack and you pack. Packing is when you put everybody into one district of the opposite party because, you're trying to waste as many of their votes as possible.
Right. You're putting all your opponent's votes into one district as much as possible.
And then for the ones that you can't do it because of distribution reasons and geographic reasons, you crack, which means you spread them between all the Republicans. So you have like one district, like here in Pennsylvania, we have a couple districts that are 95% Democrat. That's not an exaggeration. And then we have a bunch of districts that are like 55%, 60% Republican. And if you actually get to a point where those 55 start losing, then you're talking about losing almost every single race in Pennsylvania.
Right, because they don't have 90% Republican districts because they've spread out theirs to make 3 60% districts instead of one 90% district.
Well, there's no such thing as a 95% congressional district for Republicans. They just don't. Democrats are everywhere. This is one other issue that people don't really recognize, is that there's a hell of a lot more of us than there are of them. Like way, way more. We're just disempowered and disorganized, and we don't necessarily recognize it. You go into quote-unquote Trump country, and it's 65% Trump. That's not that much.
Right.
That's the worst of the worst.
Right, as opposed to
if we all start
New York
out,
City, where it's like 80%.
85, yeah. Yeah, and one other issue that I wanted to talk about, then I'll let you guys go. It's the how the socialists should approach these elections. And I think the entryists, the people who enter the Democratic Party, were proven to be decisively the correct path for DSA. And I'm going to be organizing my own DSA chapter in the Lehigh Valley with a couple of folks out here. But what I want to if you look at Bridgeport here in Brooklyn, great candidate, great guy, but the Green Party didn't help him at all. It kind of drug him down. And then you see in the Virginia House of Delegates, there's DSA people all over the place that won because they won those Democratic primaries. So, the path for socialists is to take over the Democratic Party. Get in and let's organize this party the way it should be.
Even with that DSA guy who didn't use the party apparatus at that point, he had the platform. He was the Democratic candidate. That has value because a certain percentage of your voters are just coming in. They're just going to hit D. And if you can get that moniker, it is huge. And now they're going to have to come to him, and they're going to have to deal with him.
Yep. Yeah, there's a ton of DSA people that want to. Now there's some that want to, independents or other parties as well out there, and sometimes that's a good strategy. But I think overall, entering the party, taking it over is the best path, and that's the way forward. It's pretty exciting to see the left growing for once.
Yeah.
And being organized. So let's keep building on this.
Appreciate the call.
Yeah.
How did
turning down
How did Jabari do, Mike?
I think 30.
In
I thought it was
Brooklyn.
30%. I think he got up to 30%.
That's really impressive, actually.
No, he did incredibly well. I mean, I've had this conversation with him more so even off air. I mean, I obviously kind of generally agree. On the other hand, about the Green Party. On the other hand, I think in New York, it's such a one-party town that there's something to be said for setting up a two-party structure here from the left. But at any rate,
at one point, the WFP is going to do that.
At one point, the WFP.
They do it in a couple of races, but they're going to do it more, I think.
Well, there's these IDC fuckers over there that you guys should concentrate
Well, that's on legislation.
That should be the 100%.
But those are real. Those are all about. Those people who do that, especially if they represent districts in the city, are usually people that have very underserved districts locked up and have patronage networks that people depend on. And, that's how that.
They're only locked
works.
up because they're disempowered and disorganized. The
Well,
people in those districts are left-wing strongly. They're just disempowered.
No,
They're
that's
just, that's the way they
but what
want
I'm
it.
saying is if somebody is also a state rep, I mean, if you get into New York, it's very dirty. Like if somebody's a state senator and they also run a local nonprofit healthcare network that delivers you healthcare, and they're the state senator, and their brother owns the building that you're in. I'm just saying, there's a
I'm
lot
in
of
Pennsylvania,
situations.
bro. I know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess. So. Yeah.
All right,
but we'll see. They do need to be broken up for sure. I mean, the woman in Jabari's district, Cumbo, was challenged by a woman who didn't identify as a socialist, but was significantly to her left in the Democratic primary, and she lost actually.
All right,
But Jabari was better.
Jabari was better,
He
no
could
doubt.
have been a better candidate.
No doubt. All
right, well, next time, hopefully, we can get him convinced.
Appreciate the call, Mike.
Give
Talk
it
to
a
you soon.
shot. Yeah, you have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye.
Let's just do one more clip from Virginia. This is Danica Roem. I think Roem is how you pronounce her last name. And she is the first transgender woman to be elected to the Virginia House of Delegates. And I heard her last night calling to O'Donnell's show. And so on message. Very gracious in winning. And clearly, obviously, knows how to do local politics. Unseated someone who had been serving in this job for 26 years. He also happened to be a transphobic bigot. I would imagine his bigotry didn't just begin and end there, but she was focused on governing, which is, this is what Democrats are going to have to do. Is they're going to have to deliver. You get into this cycle where they get into power for a little bit. They're gonna have to deliver. People hate Donald Trump, but the Democrats are gonna have to deliver, both in locally, but also in terms of nationally. But here is Danica Roem.
Inclusion, when you champion equality, when you champion equity, and you focus on the issues that unite us, like building up our infrastructure, taking care of our roads, making sure that our teacher pay isn't the lowest in Northern Virginia, like finding a cost-effective way to extend the VRE, the bread and butter issues, like expanding Medicaid to cover 3,700 uninsured people in the 13th district. That's the sort of stuff. Those are the issues that you gotta focus on as a delegate, that you have to focus on as a candidate, because that's what directly affects everyone's life every single day. This is the important stuff. We can't get lost in discrimination. We can't get lost in BS. We can't get lost tearing each other down. This election... And I want to make a point here that no matter what you look like, where you come from, how you worship, who you love, how you identify, and yeah, how you rock. That if you have good public policy ideas, if you're well qualified for office, bring those ideas to the table, because this is your America too. This is our Commonwealth of Virginia too. This is our Prince William County, and we are. Hold on. And we are stronger together.
And you could see, actually, while she was speaking, there was a sign in the back that said fix route like 239 or something. And that was on her campaign sign. So very oriented to delivering for her constituents. And also apparently in a heavy metal band. That was what that, How You Rock.
Oh, she's the first out trans person to be elected to a state office. There was someone in Massachusetts that apparently was outed by Romney, a listener tells us.
She's a tranny.
Right? I didn't know that.
Hello, this is Mitt Romney. This reminds me of a boy in middle school that we had to give the business to.
Jeez.
Can I have some cereal snacks now, mother wife? It's not like I have any weird personal practices, beliefs, or habits. None at all.
Exactly. I do miss Romney, too. I was just thinking about that the other night as I was watching that video where the guy is yelling at Hillary Clinton. And that comedy video where he's yelling at Hillary Clinton. I was like, were we guilty of that a year after... a year after, well, I guess Romney? It would have been our own candidate. It would have been like if Obama lost. It would have been like if I was doing videos like yelling at John Kerry in 2005.
Thanks for being a great candidate, and thanks for having a clear
Here's
position on
my purple
Iraq.
finger. Here's my purple finger.
Thanks for having a clear position on Iraq.
Right.
Thanks for speaking clearly.
Thank you for having your own men turn against you in Vietnam.
Oh, John Kerry.
Turned out to be a great
Secretary of State. Yep.
All right. This was actually sort of enjoyable. Somehow, Corey Lewandowski found his way to Fox News and was actually held to account for something. The other day, we talked about how Carter Page went in front of the House Intelligence Committee, and apparently they had emails. Carter Page was not aware that they had. Yes, and he and these emails showed that Carter Page informed people about his trip to Russia, where supposedly we were led to believe by Carter Page in his numerous media appearances that he just like, I sort of came back and said to sort of just general people on the campaign that the word on the street, just more like the street, were like excited about you. Well, it turns out he was a little more specific in the emails where it was like, I've spoken to Russian legislators and the deputy prime minister, and I have some very specific things to tell you about. On the street.
I didn't even actually know who I thought he's a nice man.
But one of the things that came out was that he got rejected by, I guess it was J.D. Gordon, on signing off on his trip. And so he went around J.D. Gordon to someone higher in the campaign. And it was weird because this guy had never even heard of Carter Page. But then I guess he did. Here is Corey Lewandowski on Fox News. Well, first, let's play a clip of Corey Lewandowski back, I don't know, I guess months ago on with Judge Judy. Here we go.
But when Judge Janine asked Lewandowski about
Janine.
Carter Page back in March, he said this.
I've never met Carter Page. To the best of my knowledge, the President of the United States has never met Carter Page. Carter Page is a person who's going out telling everybody that he was part of the campaign. He had no formal role in the campaign.
So now here's Corey Lewandowski, former campaign manager for Donald Trump. Corey, welcome. Good to have you on the story tonight. Thanks for being here. How do you reconcile those two things?
No, look, there is no reconciliation necessary because it's exactly the same thing that I told Judge Janine, which is what I'm telling you. To the best of my recollection, I don't know Carter Page. To the best of my knowledge, Carter Page never had a DonaldTrump.com email address, had no formal role in the campaign that I'm aware of, was never compensated by the campaign.
Pause it.
And
Let's
so
just pause it there. I don't remember him saying in the Judge Janine the way that I'm basing that he had a formal Trump email address.
If you don't have a formal email address, you must acquit.
Literally don't know who you
The
are.
idea that he wasn't paid by the campaign, I want to just remind everybody that their campaign manager was also not paid by the campaign. Manafort was a volunteer for a number of months.
Yeah. Nope.
So that is also not a very, addressing the question as to whether or not you knew him. As far as I remember, he said, right? I didn't know him. Is that what he said? As far as I recollect? Yeah, we just rewind it a little bit and let's hear what he says and then we'll let it run.
Knowledge, Carter Page never had a
Before this,
Donald
a little bit
Trump
before
dot-
this.
because it's exactly the same thing that I told Judge Janine, which is what I'm telling you. To the best of my recollection, I don't know Carter Page. To the best of my knowledge, Carter Page never had a DonaldTrump.com email address, had no formal role in the campaign that I'm aware of, was never compensated by the campaign. And so when a low-level volunteer decides that they want to take a trip overseas and doesn't report to me or work for the organization, what jurisdiction would I potentially have of telling him or her they can or could not travel overseas? All I was clear about was, if you are going to travel, please do not pretend to be part of the campaign and say that you are part of the campaign because you are not. That's all I tried
Corey,
to
you do
Pause it.
remember
Wait a second,
you never met.
So he doesn't remember meeting him or knowing him, but he does remember telling him, hey, just remind everybody that you're not part of the campaign.
Dude, I don't know who the fuck you are, but you don't work with us.
Because you are not. That's all I tried to.
So, Corey, you do remember, you say you never
met.
met him, but you do remember that exchange. You do remember him sending an email that said, I'm going to take this trip, and you said, fine, just not as part of the campaign. Is that right? You remember that?
Well, no, you have to remember, in the context of the campaign world, now my memory has been refreshed, but to be clear, from what I understand and what I recall, that email was sent on June 19th of 2016, so about 18 months ago. It also happened to be Father's Day on a Sunday, and it also happened to be the day prior to me being terminated from the campaign.
The idea that this guy's hanging out with his family on Father's Day, I find to be a big stretch.
I think that's the
Hey,
biggest
sweetheart,
lie
it's Father's Day. I don't need to deal with the kids. Get them out of here. Get everybody out.
Father's Day on a Sunday as well.
Sent on June 19th of 2016, so about 18 months ago. It also happened to be Father's Day on a Sunday, and it also happened to be the day prior to me being terminated from the campaign. So with all due respect, there were many other things on my mind that day other than trying to understand why a volunteer was telling me he may or may not be traveling outside the country.
All right, but in retrospect, you say you do remember, you recall that, getting that from him.
Well, what I recall is now seeing that email has been brought back to my attention.
Got it.
I didn't recall it at the time.
All right.
Here's a question. Okay, so in other words, I get an email. It's Father's Day. I'm checking my emails. Sunday. It's very hectic around here, but I'm checking my emails. And I don't know that I'm about to get fired from the campaign, but there may be other stuff going on. Hope is not even talking to me anymore because we had a little bit of a breakup. And I get this email from this dude, and first thing, it's like, where'd you get this email from? I don't know you. How did you find my campaign email address? Guy who knows nobody on this campaign is a low-level worker. But since you did find my email address, I will give you my standard response, which is, if you happen to be going to Russia, don't say you were the campaign. That's what I tell everybody who has my email that I don't know, who has nothing to do with anything that I don't know why they're going to Russia.
Dude, if you want to, first of all, I don't know who the fuck you are. Secondly, if you go to Russia, you don't work with us. Enjoy the country, get peed on, whatever. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Say hi to Masha.
But listen, I would love to chit-chat, but it's Father's Day, all right? And it's a Sunday. So I'm
I
getting
can't
off
do
my
this.
email now, all right? Stop trying to bring me back onto my frickin' email, you frickin' mook.
Trying to preserve my family.
Yeah.
And I don't even know who you are.
I have no idea who you are. Maybe I'm telling you too much. I just feel like I can open up to you.
I just feel like, I'm kind of very alone in the world right now, and we've committed multiple felonies in the course of even just the summer. And I'm about to get kicked out by fucking Manafort, who actually has less of a developed conscience than I do.
Are you on PlayStation? Maybe we could go a couple of rounds online.
Can we play Call of Duty together or something? Anything to get away from my family on
Sox
Father's Day.
games rained out
Dude,
today.
we're doing this. We're doing this. I'll give you the signal, like two, like this. We could do it that way. I got a great headset I just bought. I got it for Father's Day.
People think that because you're a sociopath, Koch brothers Trump operative who assaults reporters, that you can't be friends with a dim-witted gay guy that likes to go to Russia. It's totally not true.
Totally.
Even though I don't know who you are.
I have no idea who's calling me.
What if the best part of that B-roll of that clip though is not even Lewandowski? It's just B-roll of Carter Page walking.
They shot him. He's walking down the halls in Fox, I think. That's where he's shooting. It's like some like
do.
I can't wait to go broke from lawyers' fees. Jesus.
How's this?
This has to
Good
be
take?
Has to be a Kaiser Sosa. Has to be a Kaiser Sosa.
They're telling him just don't look at the camera. Don't look at the. All right, take it again. Take it again.
It's
take
the
it again.
normal walk. I'm walking through Moscow, trying to collude.
Where is it? It's just I'm in a dark hall. I'm meeting a Russian operative.
I don't know. We're just chit-chatting. Maybe his enthusiasm for about Trump will spontaneously rise.
I see a chalk mark on the wall. I'm going to keep walking. Oh, Jesus. The best part is he gets the sense that he's being followed. He jumps out a window and he does this whole parkour thing through New York. He jumps on a helicopter and just flies away. Oh, shit.
It's like the scene in Usual Suspects where his walk starts to just changes slowly by the time
he just runs and then just jumps off of the grabs onto like a flagpole, swings around, loops up.
I really appreciate Carter Page because he gives sort of a perfect definition of what a shit-eating grin is. Like, he's being humiliated. Like, he's walking down that hallway, and he's being filmed, and he's like, I can't act normal.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine, like, the Ken Burns of the future who does the Trump presidency, and then he's like, call it a page.
I never would have thought when I say this all the time about, reading about Carter Page and discovering this character, but I never would have thought that the word adorable would have come to mind when I was reading about this guy.
A penny for your thoughts, Sam. I'm thrilled the election rolls around the country. Still nervous about our mayoral election week in Albuquerque. Going to be a long week of negative ads against our publicly financed progressive Tim Keller. It's backed by our revolution and all unions, including police and fire. Please remind Albuquerque to vote early through this Friday. Also, isn't this Democratic landslide just going to ramp up the manipulation of voter suppression by Kovac's voter fraud committee? How do we stop that from taking hold for the 2018 elections? I mean, I think like the best thing to do is, if you really want to get involved in something like that, is call the ACLU. They've got this pilot program in at the very least in Wisconsin, and they can disenfranchise people, but more often than not, what they do is they put up big roadblocks, and people can help push back on those roadblocks. So, all right, we got a couple more minutes here. Yeah, I got some time. Ernie Sandwich. Lee Carter didn't comply with Democratic Party requirements because the Democratic Party in Virginia has close ties to Dominion Energy, unfortunately. He is, of course, economically to the left of the party in Virginia, doesn't want to rely on a corporate party machine. Excellent. Bulls Prague. Sammy, I hope you realize Dave Rubin can't debate you because his time is valuable. If you can spare 1 minute, this is the caliber of discussion that it's worth it to him. Literally the entire hour and a half was like this. I am not going to watch that at the moment, but maybe eventually I will. But not at the moment. Michael's mom. Michael, I heard the explanation for your middle name last night, but I must confess it's a lie. We called you Jamal so you'd have enough cred to bed black and brown girls. Please, Michael, give us some Mocha grandkids. We need to stop this. Stop singing and start swinging. Epish, you said last week it was a fight between the corporate and the non-corporate for control of the Democratic Party and not a fight between liberal and socialist. Did I say that? No. I think you misinterpret what I'm saying. That there are two sort of distinct issues. One is a competence issue, and one is an ideological issue. By the way I see it, simply running against corruption is not a winning strategy. You can run on improving material conditions or democratizing government services as a left candidate, but these things need to be concrete and communicable to effectively canvass. I think you're misinterpreting what I was saying. I don't remember the context, but those two things seem different to me. Talking about the party structure. I think. I don't know. Joe, New Jersey and Virginia governors both good for cannabis. Murphy promised legalization first 100 days. Northam wants decriminalization and expand medical marijuana. Chefla, how much of what Donna Brazile is saying on all the shows do you actually believe? I think there's something about her I'm just not feeling. What's your take? I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't followed what she's saying. I have contended from the beginning that the DNC didn't rig anything because they didn't have the ability to rig anything. I did contend from as early as 2015 that they were clearly operating in favor of Clinton. In 2015, it was at a time where, Bernie wasn't even running to win. And so he wasn't making an issue of it. At that time, when the whole debate schedule came out, it was Martin O'Malley who was. I think that the DNC has atrophied and the structure is corrupt in the sense that, not like criminal corruption, but just sort of like the way that people just give money to their friends and hire their friends who are not good.
It's decadent.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw this, we had people that worked at Air America who were like, we've got this great idea to use a targeting firm. They're willing to give us their services for low cost. We could go down to know each listener to Air America in this zip code and that zip code, And instead the guy was like, no, we're going to just do a broad mailer. I have a copy of the mailer. It's ridiculous. It's like, if you don't like these George Bush policies, flip over and enter into the sweepstakes for a free trip.
Oh,
and it was
awesome.
just like, wait, what?
We should do one of those for this show.
But the guy gave a $500,000 contract to an outside vendor that was his buddies.
Yep.
And that guy may have a job down the road where he'll hire this guy. That's the
DNC.
And that's the DNC in my mind. Yep. It may or may not be, and maybe this is what I was talking about. I don't know what the ideology of those people in there is. I would imagine they're not terribly, I mean, I could guess that but to a large extent, it's just like they're just covering their asses. And it's basically it's a racket. Disco Stew. Must see the video of Representative Susan Delbene questioning the administration re the tax plan. Tax breaks for individuals being cut is allowed for corporations, including breaks for offshoring. This needs to be the Dem populist message. Tell Lech to check his Twitter. Check your Twitter.
What?
New Human. Good chew session with Dave. Oh, thanks. Trump is chubby. On a night of progressive wins across the U.S., strangely no comment from progressive Tim Black on Twitter or anywhere. Now he's tweeting about Tulsi Gabbard. Seems pretty obvious he's not our side on the left. This guy, Mercer Payroll, is a Russian-paid troll. I'm serious. I doubt either. In Cuck the Police.
Can't you just be a fucking moron these days without an ulterior motive?
Somerville, Mass. All 7 alderman candidates who were endorsed by local affiliate Our Revolution won Tuesday. Sweet! That's my old hometown. Awesome. Used to live in Inman, dude. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to that dude.
I know.
Oh. Coladict, question. If you have so many more people working for you now, how are you still months behind on the emails? Can't assign someone to watch the IMs for questions for your guests? I still don't know about it. Google nonsensical rifle addiction. I've sent you a video already.
What's that European guy? Sorry, I guess I'll be the bearer of bad news. We watched the video. It's modestly funny. We understand that Germans get that we're insane about guns. We really appreciate that Germans are attempting to do comedy because it's not exactly your forte. And maybe we'll play it at some point. Thank you for your interest and concern. Sincerely, Michael Brooks, Majority Report staff and crew.
But if it makes you feel better, we had multiple people reject it as a submission. And I'm willing to hire 2 more in the sticks in
It was
Helena,
a whole
Montana.
thread. We were waiting on Jamie. We thought she might save it for you, but she voted it down.
Montana, a man who was a Liberian refugee 25 years ago, resettled in the land and defeated a 4-time incumbent mayor. Wow. Wilmot Collins is his name. Yes, African-American progressive. Now the mayor of Montana's capital city. 2 other progressive candidates won city commission seats. Also, Great Falls, Montana. Moderate and progressive candidates won seats on the city commission. Look, it's not just the cities. We can compete in the middle of nowhere, deep red Montana. This encourages me so much. I Googled, how did I run for county commissioner in Montana? Who says you can't compete in red state? Well, that was my point at the beginning of the show. Like, whatever the number was yesterday or 2 days ago, people who are going to run, there's like another 20% who are going to be running. And the more and more people run, the better the chances are for everybody. Calling from a 651 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is the Chris Lapaco. Yes, the Chris Lapaco. Yes, the Chris Lapaco, who made the new Alex Jones diss track called Alex Jones is a Cuck. I wrote it in one day, recorded it. It's on the internet. Okay, Alex Jones is a Cuck. Look it up. Word. Oh, hey, the whole arguments from Trump supporters and whatnot, people who worked on the campaign, they're like, I never got paid. They never got paid, blah, blah. That doesn't matter. Like, Trump doesn't pay anyone who works for him, man.
Well, his campaign manager for the 3 or 4 most important months of the campaign was unpaid. I mean, so what does that possibly mean? His top advisors were unpaid. Ivanka, Jared,
and the people who built his buildings didn't get paid.
Right. It's ludicrous.
Yes. And then when he said, you know what I'm going to say? I thought he was going to say the M word right after that. So I'm glad whatever he said wasn't that. I wasn't going to call in, but solidarity forever, man. I got solidarity tatted on my back because solidarity is forever all over me. So I want people to Google the Mesabi miners' strike of 1916, MESABI, Mesabi miners' strike of 1916. And those people took some L's, man, but their fight was important, and even though their strike was broken, like the things that they fought for continued. So people need to keep their head up, and then good things happen, like yesterday.
Appreciate the call.
Word.
The Chris Lapaco. The Chris Lapaco. Calling from a 774 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Sam.
Yes.
This is Dylan calling from Wood.
Who is it?
Dylan from Wood. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I wanted to give you an update on the municipal elections in Worcester last night.
Oh, the Worcester municipal elections. Oh, please do tell.
It was a sweep for Our Revolution endorsed candidates.
Oh, sweet.
We had 2 council endorsements, an endorsement for mayor, and 1 endorsement for the only non-incumbent school committee member, and all 4 won.
Wow, who were they?
Joe Petty, mayor, re-election, council at large / mayor.
What's his name?
Joe Petty.
Joe Petty, okay.
Yep. For council, we had Soraya Rivera, who's a Latina activist, and Sean Rose, who is an African American activist.
Excellent.
And then we have Dante Comparetto, the only challenger for the entire school committee, and he won.
Wow.
I was involved with his campaign, and in addition to all of the best people winning, as well as another loosely affiliated councilman, Matt Wally, who's starting his first term now. And in addition to those wins, the worst candidates all lost.
Oh, good. Who?
The Trump-affiliated, or not, well, there's a blog in Worcester, and I don't even want to say its name because it's the most disgusting alt-right, smear, dirty politics.
Oh, will you send me a link to that at least, though? I want to check that out.
Dude, that might provide material in a certain sense.
Yes.
I will do that. It is reprehensible. But anyway, there's this crew in Worcester named the Gaffneys, and they are disgusting little mini Trumps up here, and it's a husband and wife, and they both lost. The former councilman Gaffney, who lost, which is great. Then the Tea Party-esque school committee incumbent was the one who was unseated by the challenger, the Our Revolution challenger, which is fantastic. And there was another right-winger running for council who lost to Matt Wally in District 5. So overall, it was a fantastic night. All the best people won, and all the worst people lost.
So Connie Luke, is she still running?
Connie Luke is former Mayor Connie Luke. She was running for council, and she got the least, or was it school committee? I think it was school committee, and she got the second to last amount of votes.
Wow.
So it was a six-way race with 7 contenders. She got 6 out of the 7.
And what about Joe O'Brien? Did he run?
No.
He didn't?
No. I don't know what he's doing now.
I don't know what he's doing either. I thought he was going to run. Huh.
I haven't heard much about him lately, but
I'll ask him at my high school reunion this year, I think.
Excellent.
You got the
And
darn.
also across the state, I believe all of the local candidates for Somerville that
Yes.
Bernie came up in a campaign for, all of them won.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
And
well,
there's probably stories like this all across the country that we just don't hear about because they're not that big races, but it's important. It's very, very helpful. Worcester has one of the best congressmen in the country as far as I'm concerned.
McGovern's great.
Yeah. So things are looking positive here, and we'll see what happens next. It's pretty good. I have friends in Athens, Georgia, and 2 of their 3 candidates won. It seems like the only big upset, the only negative result nationwide that I can really find, it was Vincent Fort in Atlanta, who came up short. But besides him, I think it's good across the board. We celebrated last night. The hangover is starting to lift now.
I'm glad to hear that. All right, well, Dylan, I appreciate the call. Thanks, man.
Yep, now we keep fighting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Great news. Calling from a 717 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, geez. This is George from Pennsylvania.
George, what's on your mind?
Well, I don't know. I've just been disillusioned with things recently, and I just need, I guess, a clear voice to help me sort things out.
It's going to involve politics? Or?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
All right.
I've been a member of the DSA since about the primaries, and the Democratic Socialists even longer. But recently, given the sort of situations that we're in with global warming, increased tensions with Iran and North Korea, and the ever-growing to unprecedented heights of corporate power, it's become, a lot harder for me to stay convinced Democrat. And what I mean by that sort of is that, socialism or barbarism as a phrase, as its origins, it's always been sort of the choice that we've had to have. And acting on that disjunction of socialism or barbarism has been what, socialists of the past have done. And I guess the first thing that I'm wondering is, is it even possible now, today, given the situations that we're in, to stick to a purely democratic method and not also branch out within and build grassroots organizations to, get the structural changes that we want? And the second thing, too, which relates back to yesterday, the anniversary of the Russian Revolution, is that assuming that time and everything isn't a factor in getting the structural changes we want. When Lenin saw the aftermath of the February Revolution, which had clear aims of workers' democracy, land reform, ending World War I, for those goals to be actualized and brought to Russia, it required expanding that to a broad socialist-oriented revolution. That's how it was, too, in, for example, Cuba during that revolution. And so I guess what I'm wondering, too, is that, if we want these goals to be actualized, are we going to have to do more than just rely on elections and build sort of these grassroots organizations to help, organize communities and achieve, the different objectives that we want: wealth redistribution, racial justice.
Look, right now, the organizations that are being built, right? The Our Revolutions, even even the ones that aren't necessarily ideological, fixed, right? Like the Indivisibles. Are those ideological? I would imagine most people in there are not, democratic socialists, but I would imagine some are. I think people are just, getting involved. I mean, the electoral stuff is hugely important. But that doesn't mean to the exclusion of anything else. And look, I'm convinced what we're seeing today is a function of Occupy. That there are so many people involved in Our Revolution who are involved in the Bernie campaign, right? And all this stuff builds on it and builds on it and builds on it that came out of Occupy. And so I think, even during Occupy, people weren't identifying themselves as democratic socialists. There was no groups. There was no pre-existing groups. I mean, there was, the International Socialists, that had been around for years and years. But some people down at Occupy identified as anarchists. But broadly speaking, people didn't speak that way. They didn't even speak that way in 2010, 2011. So, we've made huge strides. And so it's, I would give yourself another 6 or 7 or 8 years before you start getting disillusioned.
Fair enough.
That's what I would do. I mean, I think there's been progress.
Cheer up, little devil.
There's been progress. All right, we got to jump, but I appreciate the call. Honestly, there's been progress. It's slow, but it
might not be fast enough.
It might not be fast enough, but you don't make that determination
that's
until
what
after.
I'm concerned about, is that it's not fast enough.
Well, but dude,
but it might be.
Listen,
I wanted to head small business owners in Town Square now. I was expecting this to happen November 4th, but
Yeah, well, usually those things you want more in the spring anyways.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's coming. They're going to be begging for their lives.
You want it in the spring. I
Do
mean,
not
look,
wait for the show trials.
You know, this is a little bit glib, but you know, we don't know if it's fast enough. So you might as well decide it is.
Yep.
Because you don't really have you can only make it as fast as we're making it. So you can continue to if you're putting effort in, you're doing what needs to be done. And there's definitely, I can tell you that it is evolving. And I think, I appreciate the call. I'm going to let you jump. I have another theory that I'm sort of working on, but for people in my generation, almost every aspect of our cultural and political life was overshadowed by the baby boomer generation. There was not as much room for advancement. There was not as much room for cultural expression. There was not as much consumer power. There was not as much political power. I mean, that's why on the left, anyways, there's a dearth of leadership, in the age of 55, 50, 45. You just don't see on the left. Now, on the right, you see this because there was a tremendous amount of money, frankly, and they're sort of, in some ways, outside of sort of the culture. But when I was growing up, it's like music was determined by baby boomers. Television was determined by baby boomers. Through into my 20s and 30s is where you got slackers, because there just wasn't any room in which to sort of champion. And part of it was also just sheer numbers. There was a lot more baby boomers than there was, sort of Gen Xers. But people in their 20s and early 30s, I think, the numbers are starting to rebound in terms of and the baby boomers are, in retirement and have less sort of authority over culture and whatnot. And so, I think we're going to see an increasingly rapid pace of change. But, it's moved pretty quickly. I'm not saying it's moved too quickly. I'm just saying, from my perspective, it's sort of stunning where we are now as opposed to where we were. 631 area code. I only got time for one more call after this. 631 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Tim from New Paltz. How you guys doing?
Tim, I'm doing well. What's on your mind, buddy? Gotta be quick.
Real quick. First of all, feels good to win. Congratulations, everybody.
Yes.
Second of all, did you guys see the hilarious mailer that Lee Carter's opponent sent out to everybody?
Oh, I would just was he comparing him to Stalin or something?
Yeah, it's like Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao, and then Carter, and a goofy looking picture of this little kid, this baby-faced kid.
Pretty impressive, actually. Can we put that up? We're putting that up on the board right now.
Put it up. It's so good. But the best thing is in huge block letters, it says socialism. It's just amazing.
Look at his face.
How old is that guy? Is that really his picture now? He looks like he's 14.
He's a baby face, but he's a Marine, so he'll still kick your ass.
I have no doubt, but that is you got to feel pretty good. I mean, even if you weren't a socialist, wow, really? Me and those guys?
Some impressive company.
I was going to say,
So,
Lee Carter and Mao.
So,
can't believe that didn't work.
It's just amazing.
Can't believe that failed.
I know. And the reason I think it's great is the Republicans and the right have totally taken all the power out of the word socialist by calling anyone to the left of Reagan a socialist.
Carter said that himself.
You may as well just be one.
Lee Carter said, he said, if I run anywhere to the left of Barry Goldwater, they'll call me that anyways.
Who, honestly, for the vast majority of people
they called
in this
Obama
country,
socialist.
that's the vast majority of people in this country, who do they associate? Who is the most well-known socialist? It is Barack Obama.
Yeah.
I would say the number of Americans who voted in that election who know who Engels is, from that matter, right? Or maybe knows who, maybe like they know who Marx is, but they don't really know who he is. They're looking at Moses. Wait, is that Moses? Oh wait, no, it's Marx. Is not the number one. I would bet somebody should do this poll. Like, who is the most famous socialist you know? And I would say probably most people would say, oh, Barack Obama.
Yeah, like a family, what is that, Family Feud or whatever? Like, people
you
would
can't
guess
have socialism for a simple reason. It's not in the devil's nature.
Yeah, I mean,
we had natural utopian socialism before Jacob created John caves.
They did that.
It's also a problem.
That poll exists.
The problem they also have is the same problem that Mindy has. Mindy looks around. She sees everybody around her. I'm not slamming on Mindy. I'm just using this example. She looks around. They're freaking out, and she assumes like, oh my God, this is all being driven by the people who I see on my daily basis. She doesn't realize that she, like all of us, like I take the exact same route to work every day. I see the same people, and that's how that's my world. These people are the Republican Party are so stuck in such a narrow bubble, and they happen to tend to be a little bit older, and have a sort of a narrower worldview. I mean, like I say, I may talk to a narrow group of people, but I have access to. I watch Fox. I have access to right-wing talk radio. They don't have access to the stuff that I have access to. They don't understand that Marx, Engels, and don't have the power that they think it does. They don't understand that the word socialist is
just Marxism. The whole thing is how many goddamn places on the map that we got Natural History Museum. We've got a goddamn colored scientist running around, and they still want more. It's like more Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, they want food. Oh, gee golly.
I mean, it would be like can you imagine
we'll be hung on the streets,
putting out some type of I don't know. This guy's just like a melon. He's like a Carnegie. Like what?
So there's a so before I go, there is a poll out, and I got to find the link, but 55% of people who voted in 2012 or whatever
there it is.
thought Obama was a socialist.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, which means that non-0% of the people that voted for Obama thought he was a socialist.
I'm an African communitarian syndicalist, you dumb motherfuckers.
Gonna be
my only platform is killing white people.
He's gonna be the most popular president in in decades.
Literally, he just made it be like, are you a halfway decent human being who expresses a modicum of concern for general people?
Hey.
You're a socialist.
Right.
That's all it meant.
Yeah. Good job, guys.
And Bernie actually
seems very polite.
And what's funny though is that Bernie, with a much more robust platform, actually just reinforced the message.
Yep.
I ran into.
Appreciate the call.
Where I was, I couldn't believe it.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
A doctor, an affluent, and she basically kind of was like, I didn't vote, to be honest with you, and she actually had the same the Hillary and Trump are just as bad, but I assume that she would lean to the right. Russian, Jewish, and she goes, but that man, Bernie, I would have voted for him. He had integrity, and he cared about normal people.
Yep.
Wow.
All right, final call of the day. You calling from a 201 area code. Other callers, I'm sorry. I know you've been holding for a long time, but just ran out of time. Calling from a 201 area code. Who's this?
Rubber dub, 3 men in a tub. Jeff Sessions had those fruits arrested. Oh! What's up, fellas?
What's up?
Hey, listen, Sam.
Yeah.
Before I get to my question, and I do have a question for you today. I want to say something to Steve Strang, who you had on your ad the other day.
I can't understand it. Mooch, you got to talk into the phone.
Steve Strang, who you had on your ad the other day. All right, questioning my morality. All right.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about this Mama Luke, okay? I've seen this guy plenty of times in the Roosevelt room late at night, and all I got to say is soy sauce enemas, all right? That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, I think that's probably all I want to hear.
Yeah.
What was the
Believe
question?
me.
What was the question?
Believe me.
I believe you. I believe you. What's the question?
All right. Well, as you know, I've been working on my website, the Scaramucci Post, right?
Yeah.
Currently in beta testing.
Right.
It's not 4 betas, it's 4 alphas, but it's in beta testing.
Right. Fair enough.
Alpha website in beta testing. You got it?
Yeah. Got it.
So I got a couple of slogans I'm working on. Wonder if I can bounce a couple off.
All right. Let's bounce them off quick.
All right, here you go. First one. The Scaramucci Post. All the news that'll fit in your shine box.
That's
You
pretty
think
good.
that might run into copyright issues?
Yeah, I don't know. You might. That's pretty good. I like that.
Goodfellas
Yeah.
reference.
Shine box. Yeah.
All right, here's another one. The Scaramucci Post. Grabbing you by the brain pussy. Too vulgar?
That might be. Yeah.
No, I think that is so on
It just
brand.
doesn't slip on the
Well, I
tongue.
think it's
I mean,
perfect.
slip off
Well,
the,
slip on the tongue.
Yeah.
You're a family
Oh.
man.
Well,
Yeah.
the other one, maybe we'll keep it a little more simple, a little more direct. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Hey, don't be a stunad. Read the Scaramucci Post.
I like the middle
I got to
one.
tell you, Mooch, I would hit the drawing board just a little bit. You're close, but you're not quite there.
Because I'm trying to remake my image. I'm trying to soften up, trying to go for like a woke Scott Baio thing, and I'm just, I'm hitting the wall here. So, thanks for letting me bounce it off here.
All right. I appreciate the call. Final call
All right,
of the
fellas,
day,
take it
ladies
easy.
and gentlemen. The Mooch. All right. A couple more IMs and we're out of here. DX Fool, Private Mentionix, in addition to Danica Roem, the punk band Cab Ride Home, Andrew Jenkins, Lisa Middletown won her city council seat in Palm Springs, California. Tyler Rose won a place on the Erie County School Board Northwest. Do you know what happened to Mel Wymore and Perfsine Smith's races for the New York City Council? Also, Hawaii is part of the West Coast Blue Wall. In fact, there are no Republicans in the 25-member state Senate out here in Kenya. Love the Monte Carlo disco version of La Poupée. Dijon Trump, that is by far my favorite version of La Poupée. Tim Black's already complaining about last night's win in New Jersey. Such a hack move. Shield Jargon. You didn't know who the Democratic nominee was? This version of La Poupée needs some of Sam's singing fun half spliced into it. Rand Paul's broken ribs. I took a bad hit, but you could imagine if I had to go to a non-segregated hospital. George and Self, first of all, congratulations, an absolute triumph. Turns out the real Antifa superhero soldiers were the voting American public. Lastly, quick UK update. Everything's effed. Foreign Secretary Johnson might have gotten a UK citizen killed in an Iranian prison. Maybe just a huge sentence. And another minister secretly met with the Israeli government while on holiday. She's about to get sacked. Left is best. We talked about that yesterday. A Square thought about MR last night. His good results were coming in. Rome's speech about what her campaign was a clear distillation of progressive values, healthcare, equity, public education, etc. Yes, fix the roads too. Hope the lessons they take is political marketing, a mix of local, national, what you can connect with 70% of the people. Great leap forward. I've been drinking to get myself out of depression. Last night it finally worked. Biggest takeaway, healthcare. Single biggest issue by far to Virginia voters. Dem needs to run a national health insurance platform now. Obama won. Landslide on it. Joseph Ballin. Last night's success proves the Democratic base is tired of the establishment, want actual change, not faux change like Donald Trump. Also, the reason Jimmy Reefercake didn't send a song last week is because his power is out for 5 days. Oh, gosh. Historic Larry, say what you will about ISIS, but they are very collaborative and innovative with the millennial tech. Producer Lauren, Mindy sounds like Judy Gold. Could you explain why Virginia elects a new governor and lieutenant governor every 4 years? Did something happen in the past, a corruption scandal that led to this term limit? I don't know why. That's a good question. JP Weaver, any data on turnout? I'm hearing huge, but not sure we outperform usual gubernatorial turnout in Virginia. My you know what? Initially, I heard there was, but I didn't see any final turnout numbers. But I would imagine it's pretty easy to figure out. Just look at what 2013's was and look at this one. All right, 4 more IMs. Teacher Lauren, hey everyone, can't listen live, but can I get a shofar for my birthday? You got it. Ronald Reagan, Trump's in Forbidden City. Does the McDonald's there have that Szechuan sauce? Chris Burdick. Trump was disappointed with China's Forbidden City. He was hoping it was going to be the Forbidden Zone from the original Planet of the Apes. And the final IM of this rather fun day. Would like a good book recommendation that enlightens in regards to the cause of the left.
What causes it?
I don't understand what that means.
I'm not sure what that means. Ask again tomorrow. See you then.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie.